Mr. President, I come to the floor today, someone who is back in my home state every weekend. And as I talk to people and say, what's on your mind? They say what's on their mind are jobs, the economy, the nation's debt, and the nation's spending. I say, what do you think about things going on in Washington? And they say, the problem with Washington is it taxes too much, borrows too much, and the government grows bigger every day. And they say, what are we going to do about it? When we talk about the debt, the people of Wyoming have a clear understanding that the number is very, very large. And they say, well, what about the budget? And as we get into the discussion, it comes down to what budget? Where is the budget? It's been 800 days since a budget's gone through this body. Over 800 days. You're talking more than 2 years. Why is that? I think there was a vote on a budget earlier this year, and that was the president's so-called budget, lost 97-0. Not even one Democrat voted for what the president had proposed. The news magazine, The Economist, called it a dishonest budget. In Wyoming, we balance our budget every year. We don't have a debt like the country has, the country with its $14 trillion debt. Wyoming, the debt is zero, because year after year we balance our budget, live within our means, spend only what comes in, and actually have money left over that we can invest in the people of our state. And it's because from the beginning, when the Constitution of our state was written, included right there in the Constitution is a component that says that you shall balance the budget every year. Don't spend more than we have coming in. So to do that, one of the most useful things is that there actually be a budget. Be a budget. Something to live within, something to look to as a guidepost, as a roadmap. I'm still looking for one in this body, Madam President, saying, where is it? Why haven't we seen one? And so that's why I'm coming to the floor today with a number of my colleagues to say what is going on that it's been over 800 days, no budget, no opportunity to have the American people look to a roadmap to see where the country is headed. We hear all the discussion about the fact that, are we headed to a default? What about the debt limit? What about the ceiling? Is that going to be raised? The people say, what's the plan? What's the spending plan? What's the savings plan? I don't hear one coming forth from the majority party. I don't see one from the majority leader. I don't see one from the Budget Committee. I don't see one from the President. They're having discussions at the White House about how to try to get spending under control. I say, where's the President's plan? What I hear from the President is he wants to raise taxes. And the people of Wyoming would say the best way for more revenue to come in is not raise taxes on the people who are working. It's put some of those 9.2 million Americans, 9.2% of Americans who are looking for work, put them to work, and then that money will come in as they pay taxes. So I come today to the floor, Madam President, with a number of my colleagues. Senator Sessions, the senator from Alabama, has arrived. And I know that we're going to be engaged in a colloquy and to discuss some of these issues. But I'll tell you, we ought to be focusing on these 9.2% of Americans who can't find work, what are millions and millions of Americans looking for jobs. And when I talk to the job creators, they're saying it's the President's position and his policies that have made matters worse. Made matters worse with increasing health care costs as a result of the health care law. Made matters worse as a result of the regulations coming out of Washington that add additional costs onto businesses, and making it worse in increased energy costs as the President continues to send energy jobs overseas as he makes it harder and harder to explore for American energy. And so, Madam President, I would ask my colleague, Senator Sessions, to give us his thoughts, if I could, on the concerns that we face as a nation without a budget, without a plan, without a roadmap at a time of astronomical astronomical deficit, huge numbers, numbers that are too high for people to even understand and comprehend.
I appreciate Senator Barrasso and his leadership on so many issues in this Senate. It is a sad event that we are now filing an objection to the movement of an appropriations bill because it violates the Budget Act contained in the United States Code. And the Budget Act says you shall not move forward with an appropriations bill if you haven't first passed the budget. So I guess my friend from Wyoming, accomplished orthopedic surgeon and physician, and his experience in the legislature in his state, does it strike him that when you're in the most serious debt crisis perhaps the nation's ever had from a structural, systemic point of view, that we ought to follow the law? We ought to first decide how much money we can afford to spend next year, and then allocate that money to the various spending appropriations committees so that they can produce a plan that would live within that budget. Is that the common sense way that we should proceed?
Well, Madam President, I would say absolutely yes. I mean, if you're a family in Wyoming, and I don't care if you're living in Casper or you're living in Kemmer, either way, you know you need to live within some construct of how much is coming in, how much can you spend, live within a budget. Families have budgets, they live within their budgets. The state of Wyoming has a budget. We have a balanced budget component of our Constitution. So it not only says we have to have a budget, it says you have to balance it. And if you don't have a budget to begin with, I can't understand how you can balance it, and so is it any surprise that we are $14 trillion in debt and we're borrowing $4 billion a day, $2 million a minute in this country, and we're borrowing a lot of it from China. And it would just seem that we ought to be following the law, having a budget, and then living within the budget, and it needs to be a responsible budget consistent with what's coming in.
I know we appreciate our colleagues who worked on this bill, but there's much, much more appropriations that should be done this year. And how can they be continued without a budget? You say, well, we spent within the president's numbers or the House numbers, but those have not been approved in the Senate. We've had no votes in the Senate. It's not a binding number. And the truth is, what we need to do is what the House did, I believe. Senator Barrasso, isn't it true that the Republican House, with a new leadership, came in, they faced up to the 10-year budget window that we have. They laid out a plan for 10 years. It cut spending by $6 trillion. It actually simplified our tax code substantially and reduced certain taxes, focusing on tax reductions that create growth so we could have more income generated. And whether you agree with it or not, by April 15th, they did all this, which is what this code says. Don't you think they have done their duty? And what would you say about the Senate's failure to even attempt to present a budget?
Well, the House has approved a budget. They presented a budget, debated a budget, discussed a budget, and passed a budget. Nothing in the Senate for over 800 days. And, you know, people at home tell me on the weekends, they say, you got to stop spending money we don't have. Stop spending money we don't have. They say, we expect better. We expect better of those who are elected to go to Washington and represent us. We expect better. No, and, you know, the thing they also believe is that of the money that they're spending, that they're sending to Washington, it's their money. It's not Washington's money, it's their money. The money that they're sending to Washington, people don't believe they're getting value for their dollar. If you said of every dollar you send in, about how much value you're getting back, it's at an all-time low. It's less than 50 cents on the dollar. People think they're getting value. You know, people want efficient government, effective government. That's not what they're finding today. They're seeing amazing amounts of waste and fraud and abuse. But fundamentally, they're not seeing a budget, a roadmap for which to make a plan and then live within that. And that's why I come to the Senate floor with my colleague today from Alabama to say the law is specific, not just in the state of Wyoming, but also in the United States, that we need to have a budget.
Well, the law is specific and the need is there whether we had a law or not. The law doesn't require families to have budgets, but families that are smartly managing their money have budgets. Businesses have budgets. No law requires them to have budgets because it's the only way to manage your money. And it's really a unacceptable situation we find ourselves in. Senator Barrasso, let me ask you this, and I want to try to boil it down to the nub of why we haven't done it, why the majority in the Senate has not proceeded with the budget. And let me just say that a budget is considered so important that unlike other legislation, it can be passed with a simple majority. It cannot be filibustered. It has priority process to be moved rapidly on the floor. It can't be blocked. And so the goal is that you could pass a budget. Even a party, if they wanted to do it on a straight party line basis with over 50 votes, could pass a budget. And so I guess I'm trying to focus on, is there something broken about the Senate? Is there something broken that causes us not to be effective? Is there something broken in the way we operate that would have kept the Budget Committee from bringing a budget forward and voting on it in committee and passing it out of committee? They did that last year. Is there any reason that the Senator can think of a substantive nature that would have blocked that?
Well, I would say the only reason I know is that someone intentionally doesn't want to bring a budget to the floor of the United States Senate. Because if a budget were on the floor of the United States Senate, then could look through it, read it, people at home could look through it, have some input, call, write, talk to us at town hall meetings and say, you know, we ought to try to amend this proposal to spend less money over here, more money over there, try to decide the best way to work together as a nation to improve opportunities for people in this country. I mean, that's what a family budget does, whether they have to, and they don't have to by law, but smart families do that. They make plans, they think ahead, and not just 3 months or 6 months. Families look ahead to put money aside for college and opportunities. They think about, you know, will they need a new car, a new roof someplace down the line? What will they need? And that's what budgeting is all about. So I see no reason fundamentally why there isn't a budget proposed by the majority party here on the floor for all of the country to take a look at, all of the country to say, yeah, change this, more here, less there, reprioritize, and let the country work.
If the senator would yield,